Concept 2, writing the equation for a linear function. Alright, so we have done this before. Basically, we are taking a table or taking a graph and we're trying to write a linear equation from that graph. Okay, so we did this in chapter 8. It's one of the more difficult concepts. It's something that I think a lot of students can struggle with. So we're going to go through it again. All right, it's basically the same process for linear functions, except at the end we slap function notation on it, and we're done. Okay, so whether we're using a table or a graph, and this table and this graph are the same, okay, I've got the same values on them, we're going to start by using our slope formula on two of our points. So we're going to pick 2 points and use our slope formula, and then we're going to solve for the y-intercept. Okay, and there's some shortcuts for solving for the y-intercept, and there's some shortcuts for solving for slope formula, but sometimes you can't use those shortcuts, so we're going to do it the long way, and then I'll show you the shortcuts if you can't remember them. Okay, so slope formula, I've got my 2 points. All right, and remember you want to use the larger values for your point 2. All right, so I'd basically be taking these 2 points. If I was working with the table or with the graph, I'm selecting this point and this point because I see that it crosses right through an intersection. So I'm going to have my y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, I'm going to say that this is my point 2 and my point 1. So I will have my 6 minus 4, right? y2 minus y1 over x2, 10 minus 5. Ooh, 10 minus 5. My mouse isn't working. Okay, and 6 minus 4 is 2. 10 minus 5 is 5. So I've got my slope is 2 over 5. And that's my slope. That's as far as I go, right? I don't need to turn it to a decimal. I don't need to do anything else to it. All right, that's my rise over my run. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug it in to my y equals mx plus b. I'm going to plug my 2/5 in to m, so 2/5, and then I'm going to plug in one of my points for my x and my y values. Okay, so in this case I'm going to use, let's use this one. This one should be the easiest one. So x is 5 and y is 4. Okay, and I still have my plus b. All right, that's what I'm solving for. Now, in the tests from last chapter, I got a lot of people that ended with this, and they just said, "Oh, this is my equation." This is not an equation. Okay, for it to be your linear equation, you need to have your 2 variables, your y and your x, as variables. When you put values in there, it's no longer a linear equation. Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm figuring out what my y-intercept is. All right, so I'm going to do this multiplication. I have 5, or really 5 over 1 times 2/5. Well, these 5s can cancel out, and I'm left with 2 over 1 or 2. So I'd have 4 equals 2 plus b. I want to get b by itself, so I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Subtract 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. So 2 equals b. I've solved for my y-intercept, and now I can plug it back into my linear equation. I'd have y equals 2/5, because that's my slope, times x plus 2, because that's my y-intercept. All right, and that is my linear equation. Now the final step that we're adding to that is I've got to turn it into function notation. So instead of y, I have f of x equals 2/5 x plus 2. Okay, and that would be me being done. All right, so once again, this is the long process. All right, slope formula, and then plugging in values, plugging in 1 point for my x and y to solve for my y-intercept. All right, now if you've got a graph or if you've got a table where you have that 0 for x, the shortcut for finding your y-intercept is just look at it, right? So on my y-axis, I can see this is my y-intercept right here, okay? Right here, where x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 2. So my y-intercept, my b, equals 2, and I can see that right there. Same thing for my table. X is 0. Well, that's where my x is 0. That's my y-axis, and my y is 2, so b equals 2. Okay, so that's excuse me, that's the shortcut for finding your y-intercept. The shortcut for finding your slope is just when you're given a line, walk that line. Okay, how much do I come up? Well, I come up 1, 2. How much do I come over? I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope is 2/5. Okay. For this one, I can do the same thing. How much do I come up? Well, I come up 2. How much do I come over? Well, I come up, or I increase by 5. So I've got a y change of 2 over an x change of 5. Okay? These are some shortcuts. Sometimes they won't work. All right? If your graph doesn't show where it crosses the y-axis, it won't work. Or if your table doesn't have where x equals 0, it won't work. All right? And sometimes it is more difficult to find your slope this way than it is actually taking those 2 points and doing the subtraction. All right? So, once again, the surefire way, pick your 2 points, use slope formula to find your slope. Plug your slope in with one of the points, one of the x and y values, into your equation, and then solve for your y-intercept. All right, you plug all of that in, and then replace y with your function notation, which will almost always be f of x. Okay? All right, and there we go.